Ever wonder why you feel restless even when your life looks perfect on paper? Today, I'm going to show you why that feeling isn't just normal. It might be the exact thing you need to create an extraordinary life. Welcome to the Live Free, Love Life podcast, where we discuss how to create more freedom so we can love our lives no matter what we're going through. Hello, my beautiful friends. I have a very special guest for you today. Her name is Heather Rackham, and I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself, Heather. So tell us who you are, what you do, who you help, why you're passionate about all these things.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for having me today. It's super fun to have this conversation. I love Mindy, so anytime I get to spend some time with her is great. Like she said, my name is Heather Rackham. I run a couple of life coach directories. I initially started running Latter Day Life Coaches, which is ldslifecoaches.com, and then created lifecoachdirectory.com. So obviously the first one is geared towards the space of anybody who is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints can come and find a coach there that they know kind of has their same religious beliefs and backgrounds. And then the other directory doesn't have that limitation to it. It's all life coaches. But the premise behind it is that, as you and I both know, anybody can call themselves a coach, right? Which is the good news and the bad news, because that's pretty scary to think that you could put your life kind of at the hands of somebody that maybe doesn't have great training or hasn't really spent a whole lot of time in developing skills to be a coach. And so to be on my directories, it's kind of a safe place to go because there's restrictions and things that are expected of coaches to be listed on those directories. So that's what I do. And I love it. As part of that, I have my own podcast for the Latter-day Life coaches. And I have all the coaches that are on that directory join me as guests on that podcast. And I don't know. I just get to have a fun time talking about and doing all the things that I love to do. So,
Now, tell us why you love, rather than coaching, you love
mhm.
helping coaches be successful and find clients. So tell me
Yeah.
why you're passionate about that.
Well, we'll kind of answer this probably a little bit as we talk in our conversation today, but mostly when I felt compelled to become a coach, first of all, it was completely, I was almost blindsided by the directive that I got. I don't know about what your listeners have. But I believe in a higher power and being guided by a higher power, and I just felt like almost slapped in my face of like, "Hey, wake up. This is your next move. You're supposed to do this." And I was like, "Oh, I'm perfectly content in my life. I don't need to do anything." Anyway, in doing that, I felt really limited. Like there's so many people I wanna teach these things to because it was life-changing to me, and I felt really limited to the amount of time that I had to put into it. So for me, this is my way, though I don't do a whole lot of private coaching, I will by referral, but I feel like in doing what I'm doing, I am getting coaching out into the hands of more people by sharing other coaches and sharing what they do. That's kind of like my mass way of spreading the word in a grander arena than I could do on my own, if that makes sense.
I love it. I think everyone, like literally everyone on the planet, should have a coach. And most people don't know it. And they
Yeah.
don't know how helpful it is. And they don't know how much better their life could be and their relationships could be, like all the things.
And I am one of those people who had no idea that I could benefit from having a life coach. And we'll talk about this more, but
Yeah, let's talk about it right now. What are the most common struggles or limitations you faced before you worked with a coach?
mhm. So I love this question because I honestly didn't really think I was facing a whole lot of struggles. And
Yeah.
I don't know that I would even say I was facing struggles. Like I said, my life was pretty content. Well, really content actually. I was a stay-at-home mom and happy doing that. I have 4 kids and they all lived at home when I started. But I things were great for me, honestly. And I stumbled upon, I don't know, a podcast of somebody talking about life coaching. And I was like, life coaching, that is a really stupid name. It's like, what? And I don't even know what compelled me to continue listening because I thought it was kind of funny, but it was literally like the first podcast I ever listened to, which is so interesting. But somebody that I trusted on Instagram had shared something and I was like, oh, I'll listen to it. Anyway, I would say, honestly, I didn't really feel stuck. I didn't feel shackled, kind of to use some of the words that you use sometimes. And I was super content. But um, but I did wonder if maybe there was more available to me in my relationship with my spouse.
Mhm.
Like I was really happy, but there was this piece that kind of felt surfacey in my relationship, I would say. So not extremely emotionally intimate was, and I always kind of wanted more connection. But I wouldn't consider that a struggle. Like I would have said to somebody else, I think I'm more happy in my marriage than most of the people around me. And if I had to compare, that's kind of where I
Yeah.
would be. So I actually really like to share that with people that I didn't really feel like I had any struggles and that life was pretty great for me. And until I discovered that there was actually opportunity for so much more. Because in saying that I wanted a little bit more connection with my spouse, I was actually content. Like, it's fine if I never do. This is like, we're happy and things are great. But I didn't really know that it was even possible. So,
Oh, I love this so much because we do talk a lot about being stuck. My journey through life coaching, I was like so stuck in my blended family situation. I did not see a way out. Was like, it's like I'm gonna have to get divorced again. This is horrible. So I do talk a lot about that. And I love that you're bringing this other perspective because even now, as I up level in ways that I'm not feeling terrible, like I'm feeling, I think my life is actually really amazing.
mhm.
And I'll up level and go, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize how stuck I was right there. And we could be stuck because we're content.
Oh,
We could be stuck
absolutely.
because we're satisfied. We could be stuck because everything's pretty okay.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about that on this show, and I am loving it. So walk us through your success story of
Okay.
breaking free from these limitations that you didn't really even know that you had or weren't a huge problem. What was your journey like?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you said, like, being content can actually, keep us stuck, and I really think that is exactly where I was. Like, I was very content. I didn't really feel like I needed to, like, push anything because, I mean, everything felt fine. But in that podcast episode that I listened to, the coach on there offered this perspective, which was and it was an instant mind shift, and I actually feel like I almost need to like, before I even say what the statement was, I don't really subscribe to this statement anymore, but it was enough in the moment to, like, open my eyes to something that was, like, hadn't really been there before. But this person said, "What if your husband's only job was to give you somebody to love?" And I was, like, floored by that, like, "What? Like, that's even a possibility? Just to not really expect anything, but just to, like, have them because loving somebody feels so good?" That was mind-boggling to me, and honestly, that one statement just, like, opened up my perspective, my thoughts to thinking that, wow, like, I could believe this. And what happened when I started subscribing to that statement was pretty amazing to me. Like, I released a lot of expectations that I had for him, which I'm not saying now that we shouldn't have expectations. But at the time, dropping some of those expectations that I had allowed me the space in myself to look inward to see what my part was in this relationship and what I was doing very contently and, like, and complacently and being just fine with, but, like, not pushing the borders a little bit of my beliefs was keeping me from, you know, eh, it kept me from looking at myself and
Yeah.
seeing, like I said, who I was and what I was contributing to this relationship. So,
Well, the way you're describing it, I always think of that as like, and this is very similar to my coaching journey.
mhm,
We start from like this codependent place and we don't
yes.
even realize it. I mean, most
Uh-huh.
of us who haven't done work are at least somewhat codependent. And then we do coaching and we swing all the way to this like radical independence where we are like
empowered and strong and powerful. Whereas before we felt kind of, powerless or like we
Mhm.
didn't have as many choices kind of in that victim place.
Right.
And I think that's how we all have to do it. I don't think there's anything wrong. We go all the way to radical independence and then we come back to the middle. That's how the pendulum swings, right? We have to go all the way to the other extreme. And
Mhm.
then we come back to the middle to more like interdependent,
Yes.
like really creating the kind of relationship we've always dreamed of. I think it's okay that we have to swing all
Yes.
the way the other direction first.
And I'll be honest, because that's exactly how I describe it too. I just didn't quite know, like if your listeners, if they, how they were in understanding what that continuum, what that spectrum is. But to be honest, that space of moving from complete independence back to kind of this interdependence was just as it was scary to me. Like I was
Oh,
so
yeah.
afraid of like stepping back in and like becoming a little bit, like, more connected because I was doing fantastically, you know, independently, but I knew there was something missing. It was like, "Okay, what's the point of being in this relationship then if I can just take care of all of this on my own, and I want to be in this relationship, so there's gotta be more here." But just that is kind of my story, is like one statement that showed me that I could quickly shift my perspective on something, and that one, perspective shift opened up my eyes to things in myself that I could do.
Well, as talking about limitations and shackles, it's like I imagine this transparent box around you, like a glass box that
Mhm.
you don't even know is there. And that one question is like we hit it with a hammer and it shattered.
Mm.
And now the whole entire world is open to you. So whether you take on that statement or you take it on for a little while and let it go or whatever, it doesn't matter
Yep.
because now you're out of the box.
Yep, exactly, and that's exactly how it was for me, like, that one statement was helpful for me for a while, right? And then, just like you described, like, then, like, it starts to feel like we're a little boxed in again by that statement, so then, like, "Oh, let's move on to another one," but it just opened up finding the tools to do that has given me the skills to do it over and over again now, right?
Right.
So
It is my favorite thing about coaching is that one question, one statement, one thing said by your coach, you can feel the box shatter.
yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I have endless possibilities now because that box that I couldn't even see is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, like I said, that was a statement that I heard from somebody else that I was able to internalize. But then the real work happened. I think, like, okay, so how do I get from point A to point B when I started working with the coach, when they helped me? Like, I could see what I wanted now, that maybe there was something more than what I had, but I needed a little bit of help to get from, point
Yeah.
A to point B. So,
Yeah. So, what are some of the most crucial mindset shifts that you needed to break free?
one of mine was I needed to come to terms with the idea that I may not always be right. That there may be a different point of view that I could consider. And just because it felt uncomfortable didn't mean that it was wrong. Cause I always just was like, oh, I shied away from the possibility of believing something because it felt a little uncomfortable. Like I would take that as being intuitive or, prompting from God. And I had to come to realize that a lot of that was just my own learned response. And just because it felt good didn't mean that it was always right. It just was familiar. And that was something that I had to open up the possibility that, hey, I might not always be right. Like I probably could listen to somebody else's perspective and see what happens here. So anyway, that
I
was
think
big.
one of the shifts that, along with that I had was I think probably a coach asked me, well, what if you're wrong about that?
Hmm.
And what came to me is like, well, if I'm wrong, then I get to be happy. I get to connect. I get to stop arguing about this. And it was stepping into, oh, I kind of want to be wrong now.
Yeah.
Getting that perspective that maybe in this scenario, being wrong would be awesome
Yeah.
because
That's
I could
kind of
stop having this struggle.
That kinda goes along because 'cause I'm kind of one of those people that it's like things are right or wrong, right? And that's the lines in that have blurred a lot through my coaching journey, right? But one of the things that I can kind of get behind is if we can admit we're wrong, then we're gonna actually be more right than we were before. Like, once we find something that we're wrong at, "Oh, yeah, well then, okay." I don't know. Just that perspective is helpful for me because I do know that I like to like look at things as right and wrong. So maybe if I am wrong, then oh, I'm more right now than I was.
I love it. So good. So, what is one practical step our listeners can take today to start their journey to freedom?
This will sound kind of trite, I think, and maybe a little simple, but this thing is the one thing that helps me more than anything, and that's journaling. I notice in my life when I don't take the time to sit down in the mornings or even in the evenings or whenever works, even if it's for like 2 minutes, I can really get sucked in to kind of some old patterns. But if I take the time to journal, and I have two questions that I kind of try to keep in mind when I am having something that's bothering me or a relationship or something that I feel like is holding me back. These two questions that I like to kind of write about is one of them, what you said, how might I be wrong in this situation? And try to come at it from a very neutral perspective. How might I be wrong here? And how might somebody, and pick somebody who is doesn't have any skin in the game, no, but somebody who's completely outside, how might they view this situation? And I try to then just drop the argument and just be open-minded and write from those two points of view. And that helps free my things come to my mind that I had never thought of before. There's something about connecting your mind and your hand, the physical connection there opens my mind up to a lot of things. But then when I can ask those questions, that helps lead me in a direction that is helpful.
Yeah, that's an awesome tip. I also writing it out, even just to look at whatever written down, it's so easy to look and go, oh, well, no wonder I'm feeling frustrated. No wonder I can't get along with this person because look at is what is in my head about this. It makes
Yeah.
perfect sense now. So that's one of the things I love about the journaling.
Yeah.
A thought that occurred to me while you were saying that, for those of our listeners who really are still hooked to being right, because both of us have been there in the past, we just love to be right. One of the steps that I took was like, it makes sense that he sees it this way based on his lived experience. It makes sense that I see it this way based on my lived experience. What if neither of us is right or wrong?
Yeah.
They're just perspectives based on our life experience, the lenses we're wearing. How do we come together? So we're like not even looking at the thing. We're not battling the right or wrong. It's just great. That all makes sense. But how do we come together?
Yeah.
And that really helped me too, to be able to just drop right and wrong entirely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, how can we sit on the same side of the table here, right?
Yeah.
How are we both fighting for the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Because that's
Or
ultimately,
we are in the same team.
yeah,
What shows that?
yep,
Like what
exactly.
shows all the things that we totally agree on? Yeah, I love it. So how did achieving this freedom impact other areas of your life? Like you started in one area, like you talked about your marriage.
Yeah,
Now, how did it expand out, ripple out?
yeah. Well, I shared a little bit about this in the beginning, right? So it kind of happened in tandem. So at the same time I was finding coaching and I was getting help with that in my life, I was getting and it's time for you to do this as well. It's time for you to become a coach, and which I think is a pretty common story for a lot of coaches. And I was really defiant kind of in those nudges. Like I said, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. I never like run a business. I mean, I had a college degree, but I'd been raising kids for years and was pretty content doing that. So in that defiance, though, I had to kind of push my beliefs, which was, where am I wrong here? Where might I be capable in doing this? What might this look like if I stepped into it? And I got brave and I just took the next step, right? I just kept doing the next step, which is the same thing that was happening in my relationships and in my personal life, right? I was just opening up to more possibilities. And so those tools were being used in many areas, not just in my personal life, but they were being used in business building as well. But they all connected, right? Because as I learned to question things or my capabilities in my business, I was kind of evolving in who I was because I was stepping out of my comfort zone there, and then I was also continuing to evolve in my own personal life with my family and my spouse because I was pushing some limits there. So I would recognize it's working here. And so it would give me courage to, push those limits here. And then it would kind of bounce back and forth. Oh, it's working here in my business. Maybe that also means it could work here. And so when I needed evidence for something in one area or another, I would usually find it, whether it was some, evidence for it in my coaching practice or evidence for it in my personal life. There was always evidence to show me that I was capable of continuing to evolve. And then it was like, oh, the other big nudge was now it's time to do a directory. Let's time to create a directory. And I was very defiant again. No, I'm not doing that. And because that's like the least, thing that I want to do is market. Like that's the thing I hate to do most in my own personal coaching. I don't want to do that. And it was interesting because as soon as I dropped that argument, like, no, I'm not going to do that. As soon as I was like, okay, maybe I could do that. Kind of the same as, okay, maybe like it might be pretty awesome if the only thing I expected from my husband was for him to give me somebody to love.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I'll do that. And then all these ideas just came flooding in. Once I opened up the possibility, like I might be open to this possibility, it was like the floodgates opened and showed me all the things that I could do. And anyway, and then like I did it. And then I get, I get complacent and things look like really easy and working really well. And then it's like, oh, one more, then I have to break that box because then
Yeah.
it's time to expand to something bigger. And anyway, it's just kind of a continual thing. So I've seen it affect everything in my life, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible to start this coaching journey and not change literally every area of your life.
Yeah. I'm a
Because
different
we're
parent.
changing your brain,
Yeah. Yeah.
and your brain goes with you into all of the things.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree. Some things like you are purposely applying it to other areas. And I think sometimes it just happened naturally and I didn't even realize. And like suddenly you wake up and you're like, I had no idea I made all of this change and transformation because I wasn't paying attention to it. It happened naturally because we're changing your brain. We're changing the way you think. We're changing the way you see the world. We're helping you develop the skills of being curious and asking questions and challenging things.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
good.
there's only 5 years between my oldest child and my youngest. There's 4 of them within those 5 years. And even in that 5-year time period, so my youngest is a senior now, my kids will say, you're a completely different parent from when you started doing your coaching work to where you are now. This was something that they recognized, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. They're like, because I've been doing this since like 2016, 2017. And, so like everything, I'm a different parent. I'm a different spouse. I'm a different daughter. I'm a different sister, right? We're different than we were then. And hopefully that's how it is for all of us. But when we can access the coaching tools and access coaches, I think that rate of progression accelerates.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some common misconceptions that often keep people stuck?
Well, people think there is a right way to do things. This is the right way, and I'm just going to do it this way. And that's so not the case, right? There is no right way to do anything because the right way for me is going to look extremely different than the right way for you. We try to create a life that looks like somebody else's, and before we know it, we're not creating our life. We're creating something that looks kind of remotely but fakely isn't that other person's life, right?
Yeah, this is one of the first things I learned with blended families. You can't try to make it look like a traditional, like nuclear
No.
family. You also can't try to make it look like someone else's blended family. Like it literally has to be just your right way. It cannot look like anybody else's.
Yeah.
If only, well, if you want it to work.
Yeah.
If you want to stay married and happy, you have to find
Yes.
your right way.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep. So that is, I think, for what I have noticed to be the most common misconception people have is that there is a right way for them and that it's going to look like somebody else's right way.
Yeah, I love it. So do you have a tool or an exercise you can give our listeners to help them start their journey to freedom?
Yes, I do. We have one, it's helping your children launch into adulthood. And then I have another one that's finding balance through the holidays, which we just kind of have started a new year. But to be honest, that finding balance, it's not just the holidays, right? Like it's every time in our life we can find balance. And by the time this podcast comes out, we will have created another one. So just know that there'll be access to 3 of them. I just don't know exactly what it is yet.
Any last words of wisdom, pieces of advice?
I would just say, like, look to be surprised. That's how that's kind of how I like to think of my life. Like, look for the surprises every day. Like, surprise yourself. There are things inside of you. I was just actually recording a podcast episode with somebody before I came on here, and we were talking about the word becoming. Everything that we want or that we're trying to become, I think it's already inside of us. There's no becoming, it's actually uncovering. And so I just like to think, let's just look for those surprises of those things that we find that are already within us. Our heavenly parents have placed like magic and, surprises in us. And we just get to look to be surprised when we find them. But it takes some work, like get a coach, uncover those things that are covering up the stuff that's already in you, and be surprised at what's already there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us, Heather. We're going to put links to her directories in the show notes. We'll put a link to the freebies, all the things that you need to find Heather if you want, or if you want to go find one of her coaches. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And as always, my friends, live free, love life. Thanks so much for watching today. Before you go, hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss an episode. And while you're still here, I've got something special for you. My Live Free Love Life membership now has a completely free level. You can start transforming your life right now without spending a dime. You'll get access to certain courses, content, and tools that will help you break free from whatever is holding you back and create a life you absolutely love. And when you're ready for even more support, you can easily upgrade to get access to our live coaching calls, as well as way more tools and content. There's honestly no reason not to join the free level today. Just click the link in the description below to get started. Until next time, live free, love life.